One of the little differences with this gearbox, because it came out of a V8 automatic, was there was an interlock at the top. It's just like a big solenoid with a pin in it. Now here's the corresponding shaft, and if you've ever taken an LT230 apart, you're kind of familiar with these little detent grooves here where the ball sits in the back, but at the front there's two grooves here, so when the pin drops into here it closes a circuit, but when the gearbox is shifted it opens the circuit, if you see what I mean. It's an open circuit and then it drops down and closes it. It's just so that you can't put, what do we say, it means by a set of solenoids and switches you have to have the main gearbox in neutral before you can shift it into high and low. Alright, so beware of that. So what we've got here, we've taken it out. How simple was that? We've taken it out, but notice here there's a little groove here where the wire came out, so what we've got to do is fill that with a bit of silicone, and it corresponds with the groove here. Well, what we can do is be quite kind of careful and put it round the other way so we're not using so much silicone. Not only does it save money, it saves time and messing about. Also on the front there are interlock switches. Alright, so there you go, that's an interlock switch that goes into there to put a light onto your dash corresponding to these little dimples here to tell you when it was in neutral range. Complicated, and all these things are something to go wrong. So what I'm trying to say is, when you take if you're doing an LT230 out of a TD5, you may have to put these back in, and you might have to make sure that this is in this particular switch. Now there's one that goes here, and there's one that goes here for your diff lock. Now that's basically on a Puma. Not so sure about the TD5, but this will give you full access to change all your bits and pieces around, if you get my drift. You know, you'll be able to use those if you've just simply unplugged them. I know it's a complicated thing to try and describe, but at least the tappings are here. But we don't want those, do we, children? No, we don't. We're quite happy the way it was set up. So what we're going to do, we're going to use a bit of this high-low sill. We're going to put it round the threads of this little plug here. Now this is an M14. Wait a minute, is it coming out? There we go. This is an M14 by 1.5 millimeter thread, and it's just simply a bolt that I cut down, which will plug up that hole. And there should be a 22 millimeter key here somewhere. I had it. Oh, I must have put it back. Oh, there it is. 22 millimeter, and just give it a good old nipping up. You can see the silicone just to say coming out of there, look. You see there's a little bit of silicone coming out there. Now what I'll do is also I'll put some silicone on this cover. We'll put some in the groove like Madonna. We'll get in the groove first of all, and then we'll just put a slight bead all the way around. Just like that. Could be a bit better there, but you don't need much more on than that. You get your bolts. Because they've been pushed all over the bloody place. And we're going to put it on backwards like that. Where's the other bolt? There's one. There's the other one. And these are just sort of zipped down with a little gun. Now you can probably see here there is just a minimal amount of silicone come out of that joint, so you don't have to have it going all over the place, because when it goes all over the place on the outside, you can bet your bottom dollar it's gone all over the inside as well, which can drop into your gearbox, transfer case or whatever. So just use sealer sparingly when there's no gaskets involved. With gaskets, I usually use just regular blue Hylamar, because that can, if that blue Hylamar gets into your oil, it just gets churned up and it's no big deal. Right, so that's that bit. Let's put this on the case, on this casing on the stand, but backwards this time, and we'll work out what the gear is, what the shimming is for this particular gearbox. So right now we're going to try the input gear and get the shimming right for this. Notice again, fine tooth cut, it's got the holes in here for the oil, but notice no PTO drive. Wonder why? Well, they didn't need it, did they? There wasn't all that many PTO options available for Defenders, not much, never mind Discoveries. So put a bit of oil in. Don't worry if it sounds a bit noisy, it's okay. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to take the cover, which is here, and I'm going to knock out the bearing and the, well actually I've already sort of knocked this one out, but I'm going to take out the bearing race and the shim, measure the shim and put a shim in that's slightly smaller. You'll understand why. It's a bit of a mess about, but it's worth it. So what we're going to do now, we've got the shim out. Take a little oil stone and just go over it lightly to take off any high spots. It's really important sometimes, because these get hammered out with punches in the past and it can kick the bearing over, and also it can give a bad reading. So we'll get a piece of paper towel, clean it all off. Make sure it's nice. Get our vernier out. What have we got there? 3.4. 3.4. So we know where we're starting off. Next, we're going to write that down on the bench, and we're going to find a shim that's smaller than 3.4. Well, I'm getting kind of low on shims. I've only got I can only put together a 2.5 out of 2 shims, because this is an Ashcroft kit. That's all I've got left. So I'm going to put the bearing in, put these behind the bearing and push it all back in, and then we'll do some measurements. So now I've put the housing on, put the shim in, put the 2.5 shim in, and you can see it's quite loose. But how loose is it? What we're going to do is measure it. Now, the keeper plate here, this little spectacle thing here that holds the shaft in place, when I can find that, where's it? Oh, I'll put it in the parts washer. But this little thing, take that out, and if you've got one of these mag mounts, like this, if you unscrew it, it screws perfectly. It's the same thread. So you can use this here, because obviously aluminium isn't magnetic. And you can use that, and then if you take out your, set it up, you take this off here, push that through there, push that through there, and then with a bit of magic you can actually work out where this is going to go. If you can go like that, look, that's even better. Like that, so nip that one down, find out where that is square. Could put a little plate on there, but I'm just going to go right off the very edge of the turned it off instead of zooming in. What a nutter. There we go. So I'm going to turn it on, zero it. And zeroing these digital gauges is always kind of difficult because you move them too much. So we're going to say it's 2. Move it around a bit. Oh, that's a pin hitting. And then we'll... oh, it's moved again. Let's do... Oh, there's 0. Look at that. 0. Hurrah. We'll take our dismantling tool, available in the shop, and lift that, and it's 0.67, 0.65, let's try it again just by hand. 0.68, 0.7, see we've got, I'll hold it up, 0.66, 0.65, it's very difficult to actually get right. 0.65, let's go for 0.65, yeah. Well, we're on 0 now, look at that, you see, zero's moved. 0.69. Got breaks on it. 0.7. 0.68. 0.69. Tell you what, see it's gone back to almost 0, let's call it 0.69. Right, well working this out again, I should have, with the preload, 3.24 and I actually had 3.43. Now I'm just wondering if this is the correct housing of this transfer case. I don't know, let's take it out, let's take the shim out and make up to 3.24 and see what it feels like. Just paste to double check things. I put the original shim back in here, the one that came out. Now I know the bearing race came out, so I think what I've done is I've mixed up the shims, because this shim is way too tight. I put the what was it now? Originally 0.25. What was it? 0.25? Oh no, 0.343. Put that shim in here, and it is tight to turn round. Yet I've still got clearance here. So it pays to double check. Don't just tighten them down thinking that because you took one, you know, you've taken the set or changed the bearings, for example, you've changed the bearings and assume that the shim's going to be right. It isn't, it can over tighten them. So let's get that taken out and we're going to go down to 324, sorry, I'm backwards and everything today, I don't know what's going on. Let me get that set up. Well, it seems 324 is the right thickness. I'm double checking it. And I have a 3.40. 3.40. You know what it means? Trip to JP and see if we can get a nice shim, just a one shim instead of using multi shims. So we want 3.24 millimeters and then we should be good to go. So back from the machine shop again. JP just knocked a little bit off that thick shim and it is now perfect. Lovely that. That's absolutely lovely. No play on that at all. The other thing, I'm thinking about doing this a little bit different. Whilst I've got this at this stage, I'm going to be selling this gearbox, I'm going to sell this transfer case. So therefore I think I might just leave this gear in, because usually what I do is I leave them out before I fit them, because it's easy to get into the car. But just to keep it oil tight, and I want to test it as well for pressure, I think I'll take that cover off again. You only need to fasten it down with a couple of bolts, it's not much. I think I'll take that off, put some sealer round it and fasten it back on. Now all I've got to do is I've got to make sure these faces are nice and dry and clean, and then I've got to clean up the cap. That was it, the end cap. Right, a little bit of sealer on this. I'm going to start by that hole there, and that's all she's going to get. Doesn't want it coming out too much. That's a nice surface to put sealer on. Now, when we get to this bit, we're going to go over the top like that. Don't forget to do this roundy bit here, this hole here. Almost like icing a cake, isn't it? There you go. You don't have to sort of go wild with it and put it on inches thick. You know. So let's bolt that on. We know which way this one goes on because it's kind of easy. Like that. just move it around a little bit. Now the next one, this is always a problem, this little cap, because as we know that the holes aren't equal. All men are equal, but not all holes are equal apparently. So what I'm going to do, because I don't think this was marked when it was taken off, I don't think it was it? Well, I can't see any marks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try it on first. See, that's not right. Well, that's not right. I always look at this one here and compare it to these two here. That's the way she goes on. Let's put a little mark on that so we get it the right way around. There we go. Again, this one's a little bit more tricky to do for sealing, but it's kind of easy. Again, you don't want too much on. Go around it like that, look. God, it just looks like it's CNC. Oh, got a bit of oil in there, I'm going to take that off. I think I'd done it before, wouldn't you? Got a brake clean. Like I say, if it's got oil on it, it ain't going to seal. Alrighty. That's gone off. There we go. Now, where was my mark? There we go. Again, just a little wiggle it, just a little bit. Next thing, got all the bolts together there. You seen there? That's all the bolts. What the hell is that? Oh, that's off. That's off my dial gauge. Gun. Dry them out a bit. And now a little bit of thread sealer. It'll have to be a little bit because I ain't got much in here. I've got a spare tube there. I think that's empty. Oh. Get through a lot of this stuff. Right, here we go. This should come out there. That's all really you want on. You don't want a great big bath of it because it will work its way around. This one, there's one at the, some of these transfer cases had a little stud in the bottom. Some of them had a little stud in the bottom here, and this one's got a little bracket on. It's to hold the, I think it's to hold the brake cable in, or the something or other. I don't know. Oh, seem to be lost one bolt. Oh, there it is. And then what we're going to do is I'm just going to pull them down with the impact gun, and then torque them down 45 Newton meters. At least I think they're 45 Newton meters. Come on, where have you gone? You were here a minute ago. Ah, there you are. Didn't hear that. £45, eh? Foot-pound I'm sure it's 45. I should know by now, shouldn't I? But I'll tell you what, I'm going to have a double check.